everyone, welcome to Clickheads. My name's Eddie the Chump, and today we've got some notes for the new 1.08 patch, which is a bit lighter than last time, but still with some important changes. We've also got a story about Riot continuing to work on a console version for Valorant, the new Ego skin release trailer from yesterday, and some interesting details about new possible game modes coming to the game, as well as different sort of social spaces to help relieve stress from repeatedly playing high-pressure competitive matches in a row. There's quite a lot to get through today, so let's just crack on. Let's begin with those patch notes. Now, before we get into the actual noted changes, there is something very important in the introduction in this article. Orkane, who is a lead agent designer, says this. This patch is quite a bit lighter than the last, but we want to take some time to better understand the impact of our changes. We have already seen some shifts to the meta. Sage and Killjoy are seeing a bit less play, Breach and Viper are making a strong showing, and the Vandal is performing more reliably, especially at closer ranges. While these major agent changes settle, we have turned our eye on a more pressing issue, the Operator. We know this weapon can feel very oppressive to play against, often leaving players feeling like there is no hope when attacking. We agree that the Operator is likely having an outsized impact on match outcomes and are testing a suite of changes to address this issue. For how important the Operator is to the game, we want to make sure we are making the right call. So we're giving these changes a bit more time to soak internally to make sure we get them just right. That's actually huge. I think it's very reasonable to say from this that in the future, the op will be getting nerfed. We don't know the details of what nerfs will be coming. My guess would be a scope-in sound for sure, but outside of that, I'm guessing just as much as you guys are. The important thing is, for those people that really feel like the op is truly too difficult to deal with, Riot have been listening and we are going to see some solutions soon. It's not in this patch, but probably in 1.09, so look forward to that. Now that we've dealt with that huge issue, let's move on to the changes that are actually in this patch. First up, agent updates, and Raze has had her blast pack changed. The notes read, initial damage reduced to 15 with a 0.2 meter inner radius falling off to 5 minimum damage. Once the satchel lands, it arms after 0.5 seconds, increasing its max damage to 50. Shooting the blast pack causes it to detonate, dealing its current damage amount, and the satchel no longer damages allies. The devs add, Raze's blast pack has been dishing out damage without giving enemies much counterplay. This change should help make it very clear when blast pack's damage poses a threat while maintaining the utility aspects of the blast pack that players have begun to master. The blast pack now does not fizzle when shot and will do damage, meaning it should still be approached carefully if in lethal range. You can see all these changes in the very helpful Korean highlights video that they released. I really like that they're not changing any of the sort of rollout utility you can get from blast pack. To me, that's its most interesting use case anyway, and making it explode when it's actually shot instead of just fizzling out like it did before seems like a fair trade-off to me. Let's move on to the weapon updates. The Guardian has actually got a buff. The notes read, price reduced from 2500 to 2400. It has an improved rate of fire from 4.75 up to 5.25. And it also has better weapon recovery from 0.35 after 3 bullets to 0.2925 after 3 bullets. The devs add this, we don't think the Guardian can or should compete directly with the Phantom or Vandal, but we'd like it to have a place where players can feel good opting into the gun at the new price. They want the Guardian to be a competitive purchase in certain economic circumstances or map scenarios, and don't want it to be as punishing when an enemy gets close. Now, I'm going to keep it 100 with you. I think I've made my feelings about the Guardian quite clear on this channel. I don't think it's cheap enough to be an eco buy, and I don't think it's powerful enough to be a proper competitor to the other weapons, but Riot note that they don't actually want the gun to do that. They just want it to be actually useful in the right scenario, and these changes do go some way towards that. Now, this could be a bit of a hot take that comes back to haunt me, but I still don't think even after these changes that I'm going to be picking it up all that often in a match. It's simply not dexterous enough compared to most other options. In before it's actually amazing and we're in a Guardian meta now. Anyway, moving on. Some great news here for map rotation changes. The notes read, it's happening. The possible pool of maps you can get placed on is now pseudo-random rather than pure random. What this means is if you just played, say, Haven, the matchmaker will deprioritize that map in your next game. Matchmaking queue for all modes has been updated to measure all your recently played maps throughout all modes so that for any given queue, you have a better chance of playing on a map you haven't played recently and are much less likely to play on the same map several games in a row. Hallelujah! No more 6-hour sessions of Split, am I right, everyone? I mean, this change is really, really good. It's still not quite the veto system that I'd like. I do understand why Riot don't want to do that though. They don't want one map to become the one that's completely avoided almost 99% of the time, but a bit more player agency in terms of map choice wouldn't hurt the game all that much in my opinion. This change is a lot better than nothing though. Let's move on to the last section of the patch notes, which are quality of life and bug fixes. The notes read, observers will now see a timer rather than their screen being obscured when observing a player who is blinded. Full screen blind for observers can be turned back on in the options for all you masochists. Minimap performance improvements. The social panel will now pause sorting while you're hovering or interacting with it. Updated verbiage in the all ranks modal in the career page to be more consistent with competitive overtime rules. And the bugs that they fixed are the Prime Classic visual effects fixed. There was a bug in which upgrade Prime levels 2 to 4 were not playing the correct tracers, sound effects, and other visual effects. Fixed a bug where the end of game screen would display a still processing message and then wouldn't show the match in your career tab, and fixed a bug where high skill disparity would display in custom game lobbies. Overall, a pretty light patch, as I said earlier, although I do think the Raze changes will impact the game, and the Guardian buff will be useful to some players for sure. Now, the patch is currently going up in the NA region and will be available to EU probably tomorrow, just like always, and with that will also come the new Ego skins by one tap. Riot released a trailer for them yesterday, and all I can say is my wallet is already aching. Black and gold is one of my favorite color schemes, and I'm pretty much a sucker for any decent Vandal skin, so yeah, I can see a purchase in my very near future. Don't tell my girlfriend. Moving on, we actually have an update for what might be happening behind the scenes for a console version of Valorant. Riot Ziegler gave an interview to the website US Gamer in which he details what they're doing to progress towards a console version. He said, we have teams that are working on it right now, and continued in reference to moving the game to other platforms without losing the essence of Valorant, which we got from Deserto. If we take these concepts and bring them to other platforms, do they even work? Is the game even enjoyable on those platforms? Now, on the one hand, it is good that we know that the teams are exploring things like precision accuracy on a controller or other input methods. But again, just like the last time we talked about a possible console version of Valorant, I'm going to be a bit cautious and stop short of saying it's definitely happening. Just because they do have staff exploring options does not mean that they'll then decide that it's actually worth it, or that the game can actually translate into a different environment like that. Just as a few examples, a few of the game mechanics that experienced users take for granted would be very difficult to do on a controller. I'm thinking of advanced movement like Raze rollouts, or even as something as inherently important as jiggle peeking would be very difficult to do on an analog stick. This is because of things like dead zones in analog stick inputs, which obviously things like gaming mechanical keyboards don't have to contend with. The inputs are much more precise. I do also have questions about the shooting mechanics. Would a console version of Valorant just be much more aim down sight heavy? What happens to weapons like pistols that you can't aim down sight with? I'm sure these are some of the questions that they have those team members working on right now. And to be fair, a console version of Valorant doesn't have to play exactly the same as PC, as long as it's a fun game with the same spirit in its own right. I think one of the most prominent examples of a very difficult game that's been translated well over to console would be Overwatch. I mean, that's out on the Switch and people do play and enjoy it. Rainbow Six Siege, likewise, is also very popular on the modern consoles. So in my opinion, at least, there's definitely room for it, but as far as knowing things like timelines or in fact overall likelihood of it happening, I feel like we're still pretty much in the dark. I'd actually be really interested to hear what you guys think on this subject, so make sure you leave a comment down below. The last thing we're going to talk about also comes from that Ziegler interview with US Gamer, and it has to do with new game modes or more social gaming spaces coming to Valorant in the future. The article gives the context that Valorant still feels like it's really revolving around its hardcore competitive mode, to which Ziegler says, what we are looking at right now is like, how do we flesh out that ecosystem even further in the future? The article adds, perhaps there are areas where groups can warm up together, hang out, or have some social downtime, as that is something that's on the Valorant dev team's mind. Ziegler says, those are the spaces that I think we're going to continue see growing around Valorant, is more tools to help you compete, but also more tools to actually help you just live a more full life inside of Valorant, as opposed to very stressful competitive games back to back. Now, I don't know about you, but when I hear the term social spaces, what I hear are either things like party games like Gun Game, which would be incredibly popular, or things like communal jump maps, maybe even Valorant's own version of surfing, who knows? I mean, there is that one jump course in the training mode, but you can only ever go there by yourself. So perhaps there's going to be some new social area where there's loads of those jump maps and everyone can sort of intermingle. I hope that's the case, because I can't wait to queue into that and body block Liam just as he's about to reach the last block. Friends really are the worst, aren't they? I mean, to be fair, there's so many different things that Riot could do with such a loose umbrella term as social spaces. I've just mentioned 3 off the top of my head that I think would be very welcome. What I want to get from you guys is your best suggestions down in a comment. Say it with me, people. Gun game. And that's about it for today. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you like the content on this channel, please hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you get notified when we upload. Also, please check out our Facebook stream. We are no-lifing Valorant over there, and it would be great to see some of you in the chat. Until next time.